This is the Waupaca Area School District Board of Education meeting.
Okay, welcome everyone. Appreciate your making time in your schedule to join us this evening. Thank you to the board for your participation throughout the month. Hope everybody had a great holiday, and it's good to be back in session. With that, I'll ask Mr. Wilson to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Glad I will call this meeting to order. Roll call. Let the record reflect that all members of the board, with the exception of Mr. Hackett, are present. Move to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would wish to address the board this evening? Yes.
My name is Brenda Gross. My son is Garrett. He is in the special needs classroom here at the high school. I know I've emailed many of you about some things that have been happening in the classroom. And so I'm just here tonight to just do a little follow-up and just to talk with you a little bit about that. I'm here today to address the concern of observation in the classroom here at the high school in the special ed room. As you know, I've emailed all of you concerning this issue, and the response that came back really was, I had a couple from the board and one from Ms. Marcon. And what Ms. Marcon basically, the clarifying line was that what the idea, ESSA, and what FERPA does not address is a parent's right to observe other students while being serviced in the special ed room. And that's kind of what I'm here to ask you about tonight. To go on with that email, it says the district will continue to limit observation to the special education teacher working solely with the parent's child, and we are clarifying this practice so that it is consistent district-wide. And if you remember when I emailed you, I sent a number of district cases, court cases, and things like that, other laws that are in place. One of them being Every Student Succeeds Act, which in section 1116, under the parental involvement, it says, the importance of communication between teachers and parents on an ongoing basis through, at a minimum, parent-teacher conference, frequent reports, reasonable access to staff, and opportunities to volunteer and participate in their child's classroom, and observation of classroom activities. There is no distinction here between regular or special education, and it implies that the observation would take place in the child's classroom where instruction takes place. The only law...
Excuse me,
oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Is that part of what you're citing, or is that your description of what you just said?
That is what I said. Okay. Yeah, it implies to me, I'm sorry, I should have said to me.
No, thank you. I just want to make sure.
There is no distinction between those two. The only law in place for privacy is FERPA, which is concerning educational records, and there again, it does not say, and this is again what I interpret from that, it does not say that children with IEPs are more protected than regular ed students just because they have an IEP. In the current policies online that the school board has put out, there is no distinction between visiting a regular ed classroom or a special ed classroom. In fact, privacy is not mentioned at all. I've been observing in the classroom for over 13 years, ever since my son was in early childhood. And not once have I seen or had a problem with observation. I've been in many different settings. I've been in the special ed room, I've been in OT, I've been in speech, APE, and again, never had a problem with it. In fact, the response from the teachers and from those other professional staff has been quite the opposite. I've had teachers and other staff ask me to come in. They want to show me what they're doing with Garrett so that I can continue at home. Because when home and school work together, great things can be accomplished. This issue with observation has come about since there were complaints from many different parents voicing their concerns about staffing and possible environmental or issues with the environment in the classroom. And it was at this point that the observations were denied. Is this how the school works with parents? And this is one of my questions. That when concerns are raised, the school shuts you out? Basically, no observation, no complaint. Case solved. As a mother of a special needs student who is nonverbal, this is very disturbing to me. My son has been coming home over the last month asking not to go to school, and he's never done that before. He has very limited expressive language, but what he does tell me is he'll say crying, sad, scared, and I'll ask him, why are you crying? Sad. Why are you sad? Crying. And it just goes around and around, and that's pretty much all I can gather from him. How do I figure this out? How do I know what he's trying to tell me? Normally I would go in, I would observe, I would see what I could figure out in the classroom. That actually has happened when he was in kindergarten. There were behaviors with Garrett that we couldn't explain why he was doing it. I went in, I actually figured it out within one observation, and it was solved. Things that teachers don't know to look for, I know to look for. I'm his mom. I know him the best. He comes to me, and I think he knows that I will take care of him because he feels comfortable with me, but not the school. That's not who he goes to at night to get supper from, who puts him to bed, who gives him his shower at night. But now I can't. What if there was something like abuse? And I'm not saying that's it, but that's a concern that's in our world today. Special needs children are more likely to be abused because of their disabilities, and mine is nonverbal. How would I know? I want to work with the school, not against. And if there's nothing to hide, then coming in to observe, like I've done in the past, it should not be an issue. If it's something where there's consent forms that would need to be signed, I would be happy to do that. I have no problem with that. I come in to observe. I want to see how Garrett gets his instruction, but also how Garrett interacts with the environment during his instruction. And it's very important because of his disability. He's very distractible, and that kind of thing can distract him. What's happening around him, noises, people coming in and out. Is the classroom quiet? These all go into play. And so I just wanted to share that with you today, so thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes.
I did, and I'm not quite as well prepared as she. My name is Ashley Ditchite. I have 3 boys in the school district here. One is special needs, one in 8th grade here.
What's your name, last name again?
Ditchite, Ditscheit.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of observing the middle school classes today. And unfortunately, so it was because my child is acting poorly lately. He's really been acting out and not himself and whatever. He's been causing a lot of disturbances in class. So I was asked to come in and kind of do a in-school suspension kind of type thing with him. My concern is that in the mere 14 years that I've been out of school, which is nothing, there's nothing that's the same. Nothing. I'm quite disappointed with the lack of structure. There's no beginning or end time to classes that is definitive at all. Teachers are yelling, okay, it's time for whatever period. Today there was what I came in at about 10 o'clock, and I think it was 3rd period, day 2. What exactly does that mean? The only class in which I examined some form of education was Mr. Pate's class, where he was showing a video. And he did stop and he did explain throughout the video, which it seemed like a normal functioning class to me. We went on and it was complete chaos from there. The next class was supposed to be a math class, which was then integrated with, what was it, counseling of some sort, your guidance, which I actually was very impressed. They were touching on mental illnesses and stuff. Very, very happy that we're talking about that with these young kids. Very important. But it took the place of the math class too, and there wasn't a whole lot of participation. Although it was encouraged, there wasn't really a whole lot. It was in, 40 minutes of sitting there, listening to lecture, which is part of school. But there was no math class after that. And then we went to lunch with a very short recess, which was okay because half of the children didn't have jackets. And then what did we do? Oh, and then ELA, which they ended up going to the WLC to interview youngsters. He was not able to participate, so we sat in a room and studied instead in the office. And then the last 40 minutes of school would have been in Mr. Seefeld's class, which should have been, if I recall, science from when I was going. Not a single lick. These kids were in small groups, supposed to be talking about current events or topics of their choice. And they're on their phones, and they're on their Chromebooks, and they're chitting-chatting here and there, but nothing is serious. And yes, Mr. Seefeld was going around and he was trying to engage with the children and everything, but there's a lack of, there's a lack of discipline, there's a lack of seriousness, there's what I feel a severe lack of education within our educational system right now. I was hoping to go into today as a little refresher and kind of, go back to 8th grade for a minute and pick up something that maybe I forgot. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. That was, I can't, nothing. I literally left the school today with nothing. And I just wanted to make that view from a parent's point of view known to the school board, that we wonder why our children are suffering, we wonder why they're acting up. We're not giving them anything. There's no structure or balance in the school system anymore. And this is gonna sound really awful, but no offense, this child right here, as best as I'm doing, he is showing behavior that should not make him go on to, he's not prepared for high school right now, but I guarantee you'll pass him on to high school because no child should be left behind. I'm not sure really, I'm not into the laws and politics and stuff, so I'm not highly educated on that, but that's the impression that we're giving to our children, that you can do as little as humanly possible, and guess what? You can still move forward. You need to think about this. It hurts because I'm feeling like my children, they don't have what I had, and I didn't feel like what I had was that great. What I experienced in this school district was painful. There was a lot of segregation, a lot of clickiness and unacceptance when I went here. I had a lot of teachers that didn't give me the time of day because I didn't have a name. And now I feel like my children are getting even less. And I'm to the point where I don't even want to keep them in the school district anymore. I'm willing to give up my business and stay at home to teach my children myself because I don't feel like my tax money is being. And now I need to stop because I'm getting emotional, but thank you so much for listening.
Anyone else?
My name is Jessica Dyksinger. My son is Austin Broker. He is 16 years old and he attends Waupaca High School. This is his second year in the school district here. And this year I have found to be very upsetting. Last year as well. Last year I had to file a complaint with DPI for Austin because he was not found in aid. He participates in cross country and track right here in high school with the regular ed students. In his IEP, say that he needs to have an aid for cross country and track just to make sure he doesn't get lost on the courses. It took, I believe, 4+ weeks before we were able to get an aid for him for track. And meanwhile, he was left in the gym with either a coach or another student while the other children would go off to the meets or whatever they were doing. So I filed a DPI complaint that his IEP was not being followed as well as a discrimination suit. I dropped the discrimination suit and I have been pondering, I have 1 year in order to file that suit. And I'm coming up on that 1 year mark. Austin has been having a hard time now this year. After that suit and calling in the IEP last year, things had gotten better. Austin was adjusting well, he had friends, he was happy to go to school. This year, he was really excited to come to school, even though most of his friends had graduated the year prior. About 2 months ago, Austin was coming home from school and stating that there was a new student in the school who just kept screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, and he couldn't concentrate. He didn't want to go to school because he just couldn't function. It was very, very disruptive to him. So they would move Austin out of the room, and I came in for Austin's IEP meeting this year in October, and they had Austin down a couple doors, and I could hear this child screaming, 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 and knew exactly, like, here my child who is hypersensitive, he can't focus on his education. Austin is he's verbal. He knows what's going on. He can communicate to me. Austin can come home and tell me, this is the student, this is what they're doing, this is what my teacher did, and this is what is happening. He can tell you exactly what class he's in, which hour, where he's supposed to be. So he's really very verbal and knows what's going on. Austin loves school. He loves coming to school, he loves seeing his friends, he enjoys being out in the school with all of the other peers. Austin doesn't want to come to school anymore. Austin has not enjoyed school at all. He comes home and he's in bed at 5:30 at night because he is so overstimulated. There's no escape for him. After everything that happened with his teacher resigning, they came in, tore apart the whole classroom in a matter of a day. These are children who are used to structure. Everything is routine. You don't just come into a classroom and tear apart everything that they've known for a year or two and expect them to adjust well and not have behaviors. So now my son is not wanting to come to school. He has no place that he can go to just get away. On Friday, I wrote a letter to whoever the teacher is, Mrs. Whittle. I finally got an email on December 2nd? January 2nd, that Mrs. Whittle was the teacher. How long has she been teaching for in this school before I've even had one word from anybody that there's been a change with a teacher? I find out from my son. Friday, I write a letter because I have no contact information for the teacher, none. No email has been sent to me. I don't have anything of that sort. I Cite a letter, Austin might not be feeling well, he is coming to school, please keep in mind that, he might end up sick, and I can come and pick him up, here's my phone number if you need to reach me. He got off the bus at 3:30, comes in with 103 fever. How long was he sitting in that classroom and no one noticed it at all? I had to take him into the ER. Not one person, not one aide, not one teacher, not one student, nobody. My son has a rare genetic disorder. When he is sick, he is sick. He is very sick. So 103 fever for us, we can maintain and take care of it. 103 fever for him could be a rupture of his stomach.
You can tell when Austin is sick.
Why are we not being informed of anything? And I can't come in and observe my son and his needs, but he can come home and tell me that, I can't concentrate, I'm not happy, I just want to go to bed. He's supposed to be weighed. My son is only allowed 900 to 1,200 calories a day. He is to be weighed 3 times a week. Since the changes have taken place in his classroom, he has gained 3 pounds, which might not seem like a lot to anybody of us, but that is a significant amount of weight for a child diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome. He doesn't burn calories like we burn calories. He needs as much exercise as he can get. So I'm under the impression with the weight gain that he's had, it takes only a couple days, that something is not happening in the school that was happening prior to that. Lack of movement, I'm not sure. He's supposed to be self-advocating, which is one of his goals in his IEP. He hasn't been able to. He doesn't feel comfortable talking to anyone, and that was proven on Friday when I had to take him into the ER. He does not have anyone he can go to. He had teacher and staff that he felt very comfortable with, and now he has nobody. He told me, Mom, I want a one-on-one aide because I can't talk to anybody. And I'm sure the school would not appreciate me coming in and getting one-on-one. That would not be addressed well. But who is going to look after my child if I can't come into the school and observe his situation and he doesn't feel comfortable talking to anyone? Who's going to be held accountable? I guess that's just where I'm at right now. I'm going to look at other school districts to pull my son out of this school district. And I'm not the first parent, and I'm not the only parent who is feeling frustrated with the way things are going here. I have meetings on Thursday with the Waupaca Fremont School. I'm trying to get him into Amherst. I want him someplace where they are going to be cared for, where he feels safe, because he's not feeling safe right now. I guess that's all that I have to say about it. I am just so upset, and I just want to kind of leave it at that.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak this evening? And for those that have not attended board meetings before, I hope you will understand that if an item is not on the agenda, we normally don't get into discussions on it. I will ask the board if they would ask, or if they would like to ask for any clarification on anything that's been brought forward at this time. Okay. There being none at this point in time, I will assure you that there will be discussions with regard to the items brought forward. We just are not able to do so at this juncture since it's not on the posted agenda. So, okay. Thank you all for your time and comments. With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, I'm sorry, I have to sign back in here. The approval of minutes. We'll start with the December 11, 2018 regular board meeting.
So moved for approval.
Motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion, corrections, or changes? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to the December 12th, 2018 special board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, corrections, changes? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And finally, the December 21, 2018 special board meeting.
So moved.
Motion, is that a second, Mr. Hackett? Motion and second. Any discussion, corrections, or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to communications for the district administrator's report.
Thank you, President Johnson. Just a couple of items to share with the board and the public this evening. This is the time of year when we outline the generosity of the community and many of our staff members with our Christmas report, and this year is certainly no different. Through the generosity of our staff members and, as I mentioned, a number of community members, we served 53 families in need through our student services department, resulting in 98 students benefiting from the generosity of our community. So very, very heartwarming examples of significant generosity. We were awarded a DPI grant for personal electronic computing devices. This is somewhat of a windfall in that it was not revenue that was budgeted. So the district will be receiving $19,875 this year from the DPI for personal electronic computing devices for our ninth graders. Next item, the school district of Waupaca will be well represented at the Wisconsin Association of School Board Convention coming up in a couple of weeks. I know we've got a number of board members who will be traveling to Milwaukee for the event. We also will have our Mad Jazzers performing on Friday for the audience just prior to the general session, and Bill. Yes, thank you. We'll also be present with a couple of students representing the Classic Car Restoration Program, and the 1967 Camaro will also be at the convention and will be part of the school fair. So please stop by and say hi to Bill and the students. They will be beaming, I'm sure, and would love to share all of the hard work that they put into that restoration event. And then finally, congratulations to the 3 board members who will be running this April. We have incumbent Steve Hackett, we have incumbent Dimitri Martin, and then we have Dale Felt who's here joining the race. So congratulations and good luck to all of you. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to the section 8 school board report on meetings attended and/or school visits. Yes, sir.
I stopped at the middle school, and I had a chance to see the geography bee in action. And they actually asked a few questions, and I did not get 100%. I was amazed at how well it was run. It was fun to watch the kids up there. I knew a couple of the students from kids I worked with in the past in soccer, so it was fun to see them. So, you know, it was. And I went to the elementary school because I know we have a meeting coming up tomorrow. Student services about the lunch, so I decided to have a healthy lunch at the elementary school yesterday, and I got to observe what a lunchroom is at kindergarten, first and second grade level, and pretty impressed. Pretty well organized. The kids all knew what they were doing. They came in little rows, and they walked out in little rows, and They had all kinds of different little mnemonics when it wanted to be quiet time. I asked Principal Ersbomber, what are they doing now? And he goes, well, it's going to be quiet time. So we also do this little clapping thing, and all of a sudden it's all quiet. Got up and walked out. So it's fun. It was a good lunch.
Did you sit at one of the shorter tables?
I did. In fact, I sat with a parent that was there eating lunch with their son. Once a week or once every other week, he tries to come in and have lunch with his son at the table. So he was a former student here, and so I got to have a little discussion, catch up a bit. So yep, we sat at the short tables and had a great lunch.
Did anybody have to help you get up? Or
You know, my knees, I had my glycosamine before I in good shape, so.
Thank you.
I had a visit at the charter school, and I talked with quite a few teachers, and they're very impressed with how the charter school is going, and I gotta admit I am too. I also talked to Joe, the janitor, and Monica, who was working in the kitchen, so that was quite fun. I saw many of the projects that they're working on, and I'm really impressed with what they're doing out there. It is neat. I learned about mindfulness, and what it is that 12:45, when this group of kids that I was with at the time came in, and there were 3 grades, and they sat down, well, they were sitting all over the place, but they were sitting down, and they just started breathing in, and whoever was in charge, the girl that was in charge, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and she got them relaxed, and then she asked them, do they have anything they want to get off their minds, and they went around and did whatever they wanted to. And it was just really a neat visit. And those kids are going a long way. It was neat. So I was happy to go.
Should we go with it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Betty and I both went to the WLC.
About 45 minutes apart.
We didn't know that at the time, of course.
Every room I went in, Mr. Fair was just there.
Yeah. So anyway, we can kind of. We both happened to see Lisa Anderson. She was working in the lobby when I came through, with her students working on contractions. So she asked her students if they could explain to me what a contraction was. And I listened, and one of the young students said, it's joining 2 words together. And I said, oh, okay, such as like we are would be weird, you know. And she said, that's right. And she said, that's because certain letters are missing, and then you have to use an apostrophe. So it was very interesting. And they were very clear and concise on what a contraction was. So that was fun. But then I walked up and down the hallways and mentioned and chatted with a lot of teachers. I stopped at Tom Wright, who was in the gym, and they were working with the students there. Several groups were gone today. They were at the Milwaukee at the museum on a field trip, and had a nice chat with the principal, and so it was really good. And I'm sure Betty's got more to say because she saw some of the same people.
Well, when I got to Mrs. Anderson's class, she was doing math, and they were measuring things with inches and centimeters. And it was very interesting how they were estimating if something was 11 inches, how many centimeters that would be. And they were actually, does anybody know how many centimeters are in an inch? Yes. Mr. Wilson? Well, there you go. I learned, well, I was 2.5. I learned that 2.5 centimeters are in an inch today, so I learned something and told the kids I'd bring that back to the board. So who's smarter than a 2nd grader? And so it was really good how they were estimating and seeing the difference between inches and centimeters. Then I went into Mrs. Foss McGraw's class, and the first thing I got asked when I walked in is they asked me if I knew what a homophone was. And I thought, oh, is that an IT device? Is that? Oh my gosh, is that an antonym? Is that a homonym? What is that? I know that, knew that once upon a time. 2 words that sound the same but are spelled differently. Dear and dear, aunt and aunt, 8 and 8. So So I got several examples by the time I left, so they thought it was very interesting that they retaught me something that I had known before. And it was a good discussion on how we never stop learning, so it was kind of cute. And then the kindergartners had just come in from recess, and one little child looked at me and said, "Surely I thought I was going to blow away out there." So I asked him how that was such a big word, and I learned that through the writing program, through Lucy Calkins, and I went into Mrs. Erskammer's class, and she was actually doing a writing lesson with the young people, and how they are learning to use bigger words and better words and more words when they're doing the writing. So it was a nice visit. I saw the young people coming out of Mrs. Felt's gym class, and it was just really an interesting visit. And I stayed in that one wing, and it was very calm, it was very orderly. The teachers, I was so impressed with how the teachers are so excited about what they do. They put so much of themselves into what they do, and you can tell that they just have a really nice rapport with their students. And the students really like those teachers. So anyway, it was a great visit.
Just a postscript, and I don't know if Betty happened to see, but when I first arrived at WLC today, the principal, Mr. Erskammer, was showing a new family around the building, so he was not in the office, and I bumped into him later, but the new family was an ex-student of ours who moved back into the Waupaca area and has 5 children. I had her as a student many years ago, and they're enrolling starting tomorrow. And so they were getting a tour, all 5 of them, in, I believe, middle and WLC. So they were very excited about it and talked about that, and they seemed to be very interested in getting going. So that was nice.
I was in the elementary school, wasn't a school visit necessarily, but I was at the winter concert. My daughter's in 2nd grade, and she had 3 performances, and I made it to 2 of them. It was really charming to watch the kids up there just flowing in all their movements. I don't know that they all remembered the words, but it didn't matter. It was nice.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to upcoming meetings. We have our January 9th, 2019 Student Services meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. here in this room. As mentioned in the District Administrator's report, the WASB State Convention is January 23 through 25, and our next regular board meeting is scheduled for February 12th at 5:15 here in this room. Move on to recognition.
So January 14th through the 18th is Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week. This proclamation came from Tony Evers while he was still our state superintendent. So our principals will be working closely with our crossing guards during that week and other weeks throughout the year to celebrate all that they do to keep our students safe in their travel to and from school.
Administrator?
Yes.
Roll on.
Yeah, absolutely. So our first item under the administrative portion of the agenda this evening is open enrollment limits, and I'm going to ask Ms. Marcon, Director Marcon, to speak.
So annually, we have to take a look at our open enrollment numbers and look at, as we approach the registration for the following school year, whether we have available spaces in general education as well as special education for non-residential transfer students. And so if we turn to the summary, what I have here is a listing of each of the schools and listed by grade and the number of students in each at each grade level per building, as well as the maximum number that can be participating in that grade level, their capacity, and then the availability of spaces for potential open enrollment. Also listed in there are the number of special education students that are at each grade per building, and then the number of general ed open enrollment in, as well as open enrollment special education students that are in each of those buildings. So taking a look at our general education availability, we're taking a look at recommending 100 slots available for open enrollment, kindergarten through high school level. In the areas of special education, we are limited in some of our areas of early childhood, as well as the LIVE program. We are, I'm requesting that we don't consider it for our 2 emotional behavior disorders programs at the middle school and high school level, and our intellectual disabilities program here at the high school level. And those are based on the amount of students that we have in there already, the referrals that we have, that we know of, upcoming Berkeley 3 transitions that we're planning on providing services for, and then based on the state recommendations of how those students should be at each level for case loads.
Maureen, we've seen these charts in past years. Is there anything that's sort of glaring difference in 2018-19?
No, and if you take a look at the open enrollment little chart from 2015-16, just slide up a little bit, you can just see the difference between must be off on the next page, open enrollment and comparisons from the past 4 years, and then we're at how many students have been enrolled in, open enrolled out, and we are seeing a decline in open enrollment in. And I know just today, Mike and I had a conversation about that, the ways that we can draw more students into our district.
When we have students at the high school, for instance, who graduate early at, and we will have some coming up, I'm sure, do they reflect on these numbers at all when students are seniors who graduate prior to 1st of February?
This is our, so these are our total populations as of December.
December. So those numbers wouldn't be reflected here.
Correct.
Maureen, on the Gene Exploration Center, I noticed that in grade 5, it's weird time. Right there. In grade 5, there's 18 students, and it says the maximum capacity is 18, but then there's 2 available. I didn't quite get that. Does it mean that we could have 20?
Yeah, I have an error there. I should have put a 0 there. I'll make that correction, because we are looking at that. At first, we were looking at that 18 and seeing a capacity of 20, and had forgotten that you as a board had allowed additional capacity at grades 3 and 4. Okay, so we'll have to make a.
But that was only for this year. My
Correct.
understanding is that it will go back to 18.
Correct. And if the numbers are reduced in grades 3 and 4, we will not try to fill that to maintain at 20.
Okay.
So our limits should be 18 at each of those. So that is a correction I'll have to make.
Okay, so, but because there are 24th graders this year, there'll be 25th graders.
Potentially.
Yeah, and because there are 23rd graders, there'll be 24th graders. Okay. Okay. But 5th graders will stay at 18.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
So you have this broken down into 3 separate motions?
So I have these broken down into 3 separate motions, just because of price. So,
Any questions on the report or the recommendations?
On the first motion, I don't understand if you had 123 Open enrollment seats come in, why are you only requesting 100 for next year?
When someone open enrolls into the district, they're part of the district's count, so these would be 100 new.
Sure. So they're in addition to the open enrolled students that we currently have.
Oh, I see.
Any other questions?
Good question.
All right, I'll entertain any motions.
I'll make a motion that we approve 100 general education non-resident seats for the 2019-20 school year.
Motion, second by Dimitri. Any discussion?
One quick question, so that number is not affected by the changes that you would be making to the CEC?
Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Any additional motions?
I'll make a motion for number 2 to approve limited 2 early childhood special ed seats available for 3-year-olds, 25 special ed seats available for SWD in grades K through 12, and 5 seats available in the learning program for the 2019 school year.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Is there a final motion?
Motion to approve 0 special education seats available for intellectual disabilities grades 9 through 12, 0 emotional behavioral disorders seats available for students in grades 5 through 12. Is there more? No.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
Why don't you want the seats made available?
I do, but it's just the capacity that we have and the students, the severity of the students that we have in those programs right now, that in knowing what our transfers are going to be next year into those programs, from, let's say, from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school, we have to limit that. Otherwise, we have potentially hire more teachers.
Said another way, we're at capacity. Other questions or comments or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Our next item, I'm going to ask Ms. Hare to address the Chain Exploration Center enrollment procedures.
This one's really just for information. I just wanted to bring forward that in that it's a little different from last year. As you just saw in Ms. Marcon's report, last year we did have it approved to go a little bit over our capacity. It was our first year, and everyone who applied did get in last year. However, this year it'll be right by the letter of the contract that we are at capacity of 18 in each class, and we'll be adding our 2nd grade. So we'll have the slots in 2nd grade and then 3rd grade, because the current 3rd grade will be moving up. So right now in grades 4 through 6, we're at capacity. However, if somebody, we will form a waiting list so that if somebody does move out of the district, we can go off the waiting list. But on February 1st, the enrollment period will open, and that'll be online registration. And that will stay open until February 28th. And at that time, if there are more than the 18 applicants, then we will go to a lottery as per charter school processes.
All the current students, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they're all being retained, they're all staying?
Yes, and they don't have to reapply or renew.
So does something go out to them ahead of time, asking if they want to remain in the program?
Yes, so there are 2 parent meetings coming up this month, and there's also been letters and postings on procedures. Because it's a little, with the elimination of the traditional 2nd grade, those parents potentially could have been confused now, where do I go? Do I automatically go to the Exploration Center if I went to Chain? And that's not the case, because the Exploration Center is a totally different kind of program with a different philosophy, so it has to be a choice that you want that type of, it's different, just a different curriculum.
Rhonda, would you just remind us, or at least me, how many grade levels projected are we looking at if we were to cast forward 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
K-8.
All the way K through
Yes,
8?
yes,
Okay, all at the Chain School?
correct.
With the limit of 18, do we know, because of our guarantee to individuals retaining their seats, and also the eligibility of siblings of students currently in the CEC, do we know whether or not there could be challenges with that, Kat?
No, you can see on the numbers there, there's 11 grade 3 seats and 8 grade 2 seats still open, even after siblings are accounted for.
So we do know what the
yes,
sibling count
yes,
would be?
yep, we have that projected out.
And have some first graders opted to move to the WLC for second grade? And,
so far, I only had one parent contact me about that, but people are just starting to think about next year.
And finally, what about staffing for next year?
We will be hiring for the 4th through 6th grade position, and then one for a 2nd, 3rd grade position, and that will be posted actually this coming week.
And are you looking to, are you posting that from within and without? Or how are you
Yes.
posting for the?
Yes, I believe all our positions are posted that way.
Okay, any other questions? Just for information, there's nothing that the board needs to move on.
Rhonda, would you like to keep right
Sure.
on going with
So
Waupaca
the
4K?
reason you have a memo about 4K registration is that this will change a little this year. In the past, you may remember we did the orientation registration screening days in which the students were at play and specialists, speech specialists and other specialists watched the students play to look for signs of kids that might need early intervention. And at the same time, while the students were doing that, the parents were getting orientation and filling out all the registration papers that are, there's a lot of papers when you first enter the district that you don't ever have to fill out again. The efficiency of that could be improved upon because in March, not everyone is ready to, or that they know that they want to start 4K, and so we don't get all the kids screened, and not everyone can make it to the days we have. So this year, through Marie Marcon's program, the specialists were able to set up screening days at the local daycares, at the public library, and will continue to do that, and that way there's more chances for the students to get screened in a more convenient way. And now that the student enrollment for the district is online, we will have 4K registration that way too, for convenience for everyone. We will still have our open house nights at each of the sites, so we'll still have those where parents can come and look at the different 4K sites, and at those open house nights, we could offer assistance with the online registration. So those are the change in procedures for
Are we planning to have our 4K locations in the same places next year?
Yes.
Other questions? Okay, again, this is an informational item, no action needed.
Next item, administrative contracts. You will recall that last year we got a group of administrators who we placed on a one-year contract so that we could bring everyone into the same cycle. And so this is your administrative contract for the next 24 months, beginning July 1st.
So everybody's had the opportunity to review.
One of them did throw. It was one for $4,000 and I had to read that twice.
Summer school.
Yeah.
No, because it was clarified.
questions?
I did have one question. There was one contract, and I'm sorry if I just missed this in the other contract, that actually addresses paid vacation as well as time off, and the others don't.
The only administrators that receive vacation or have a vacation benefit are those that are year-round.
I see.
And that language should be consistent for all of the administrators that are year-round.
So that would be not a 12-month period, or how do I?
Any of the administrators who have a 260-day term.
All right, I'm looking at one that is for 210 days, and that's the one that's worded different.
Right, there would be no vacation time because they're not working a full year.
But there is a vacation allocation on that contract.
Oh, that should not be.
Which one is that?
That's for the middle school assistant principal.
For Laura.
It's the second to last paragraph on the first page.
Right.
Okay. That will be eliminated. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Simply an oversight. Sorry, Laura. I saw her in here.
Sorry, Laura.
I already signed your contract, so I think it's probably.
Yeah.
So tell me again, Brent, that it would be 260 days? Okay.
Yes,
so
only,
that's the-
yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Yes.
With that correction, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that, we're gonna take them as a group, I'm hoping.
I am fine with taking them as a group if there's no objection.
I'll make a motion then that the contracts for the administrative personnel be accepted as a group.
Second.
Motion and second with the correction that has been discussed.
Correct.
Other discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Early graduation requests?
Yes, Mr. Waupaca approached me a few weeks ago and indicated that he had some very remorseful students who admitted they had missed the original time frame or deadline for submitting their early graduation requests, and so we're bringing those to you at this time in the hopes that the board will see fit to accept those requests.
Item got two.
Make a motion, we approve.
You don't wanna put those up?
Second.
Yeah, let's put those up.
Motion and a second, and is there any discussion as this is being brought up on the screen? That's two students.
Mike, are you good with all of it?
Yes.
And they've obviously met all the requirements.
They have. They met with the counselors. One of them just happened to fall into that internship, and it's one that will help her career, and it's really kind of a unique opportunity for her. And the other one had some changes in her plans, and I want to support her being able to go on.
Other questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. And middle school administrative transition plan.
Yes, so as you will recall, with the resignation of Principal Breister, that leaves us with one administrator remaining at the middle school, Ms. Colbert, who is with us this evening. Ms. Colbert is currently the assistant principal, however, she will be appointed to the interim principal position for the remainder of the year. So there will be a daily rate adjustment there for Ms. Colbert for the remainder of the year. And then we have a retired administrator who lives locally in Amherst, who is willing to help us out in an administrative capacity for the remainder of the year, up to 82 days. And although the memo here says not to exceed a rate of $450 a day, Mr. Lutke is willing to work at a $400 per day per diem, and that brings the costing of this change over to $790.14. So the impact to the budget is nominal.
Is it felt that we would need that support that full 82 days?
Yes. I mean, certainly if the board wishes this to be a zero impact to the budget, we could certainly remove 2 days, and then it's you're going to be under Mr. Hayek's allocation for salary for the middle school administration.
So that $790.14 takes into account salaries and benefits, payroll taxes.
Correct.
Do we have a contract for him?
Not at this time.
Okay, because I was going to say, I don't think I saw one that went through the list there. So this is, but he will have a written contract other than just a daily rate.
Correct.
Correct. So we'll get that when?
Yeah, if the board approves the transition plan, then we'll put together a contract or an MOU, one of the two. And we'll navigate that so it'll have the least impact to the district budget.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I maybe missed it. When will that starting date be?
Good question. So Ms. Colbert and I have been talking, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to have Mr. Lutke start the week before Ms. Preister vacates her position, so that Ms. Colbert has an opportunity to work with Mr. Lutke for a few days.
So that would be not next week, but the week after, is that correct?
Correct. Correct. So, okay, 21st.
What due diligence has been on Mr. Lutke?
Mr. Lutke is a known entity to me personally. He was principal in the Marshfield School District for a number of years and an assistant principal at Spash for a number of years. Mr. Lutke worked closely with Mr. Devine, who you will recall was the interim principal here at the high school, and that's the nature of that relationship.
When did you leave Marshfield?
Oh, 6 years ago.
He just retired?
Yeah, he retired. There are a handful of retired administrators that perform this type of service for school districts. When they have administrators who are out on a medical leave or who, for one reason or another, vacate their contract.
Has Ms. Colbert had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Lutke?
No, that will be forthcoming.
Assuming this is
Correct.
approved in basis, then there would be more
Yes.
discussion and/or, for lack of other term, interviews.
Transition, yeah.
Questions?
Do we have a motion on the table?
We would not.
Well, I'll make a motion then that we, I guess the right word is to say, offer a contract for Mr. Lutke to transition for basically the second semester of the 18-19 year.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
If I may, within the transition plan itself, we're looking to change Ms. Colbert's status as well. So if we could incorporate motion. Perhaps
Sure.
acceptance of the.
I'll amend my motion to make sure that Ms. Colbert is now the principal of the middle school.
Thank you.
Second.
Principal or interim principal?
Former student Colbert, that would be.
So then, your motion is that Ms. Colbert be named interim principal at the middle school, and that Mr. Lukey be hired as administrative support for up to 82 days. Okay.
Correct.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Only discussion I'll add is I assume all background checks, et cetera, will be completed as we would normally require.
Absolutely.
And that the per diem will not exceed $400?
Correct. Good. With those clarifications, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Monitoring?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Aaron to lead us through our board monitoring this evening. Oops.
All right. There we go. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time tonight. I'll try to keep it to within 15 minutes. Actually, I will keep it to within 15 minutes. I'll make sure of that. As you guys know, we went through an activities department strategic planning / assessment this summer is when we started. Worked on it through the fall, and here we are today giving the report. I apologize it hasn't gotten to you sooner. However, I'm glad to be standing in front of you today. So Dr. Nian, if you can, there we go. So just to reiterate the purpose of the plan, really for us to develop a roadmap and action plans that align with our community needs that are impactful in moving the department forward. Really, over the next 3 years, I will look to this document and this process as guidance as to where we want to go and how we want to achieve those things that our community felt was impactful. Core team, those are your core team members. I want to thank all of them. I also want to add Jessica Beckendorf from UW Extension, as well as Dana Nelson from UW Extension to that list. They weren't core team members, but they were a big help throughout this process. Couldn't have done it without them. These are the people that helped select the groups that we ended up meeting with, as well as helped with some of the action plans, vision, mission, all of that. So thank you if you're in this room. I really appreciate it. Community meeting participants. Here's a list of the community meeting participants. These are where we had the SWOT analysis, which is where we did the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges. About 60-minute meetings. Some of them ran overboard, so I want to thank everyone in these groups for their time. Without that, we would not have this plan. Dr. Nian's going to keep me maybe to 10 minutes here. Top results from the strengths. I won't go through all of these. These are in your report. You'll see a report in your packet that if you want to talk about ever at any time, I'm happy to do that with you. But you'll see the top 6 strengths here. We only listed the ones that got at least 10 hits, we'll say, from each. So you'll see 6 here, 9 there, 10 there, so on and so forth. That's the reason for that. Go ahead, Dr. Nian. Results from weaknesses, you'll see here. Obviously, when we put together action plans, a lot of these we wanted to improve upon. A lot of our opportunities matched addressing our weaknesses, so on and so forth, and you'll see that when we go through some of our action plans. Opportunities, same thing. I think maybe the most important with the opportunities, maybe the most urgent, I should say. Doesn't fall as number 1, might fall as number 5. I think we really need to educate our coaches, our students, our community on the direction of our philosophy, and that should be activity philosophy, not just athletic. I think that's important. I think that we get a lot of questions on where do you stand on this, where do you stand on that, what are we in this for? And activities is something that everyone can relate to. So everyone kind of has an opinion on how it should go, and making sure that we know the direction we're heading is very important right off the bat. Top results from challenges, you'll see there. Some of these are very attainable, some are tougher to address. Some of the action steps might be taken care, or might take care of a couple of these with 1 or 2 action steps, or at least address a majority of the issues. Some of them, issues of society, that type of stuff is something we all talk about in a lot of our things, and they're a little tougher to address. Some of those are things that we will work on, and we'll chip away at it. Just some may be tougher to attain than others. Format of the report, if you guys have read through the report, I just wanted to let you know we separated into different areas that we want to focus on. I also want to let you know that this is for guidance. It is to start a conversation. Some of our things that we mentioned in there are something that we can work on in our office starting tomorrow. Some of it can be accomplished in a month or 2. Some of them are much bigger conversations that involve collaborations with people within the district, that involve collaboration with people in the community, and also financial support that are much bigger than getting done in a year or 2 or whatever it may be. We've just recognized them as opportunities, want to start that conversation. So, Department mission and vision. Department mission, this is something that the core team came up with along with myself and Jessica, to strive for excellence in all programs and provide diverse opportunities for all students to become a part of a family through their chosen athletic and co-curricular programs. And then you can see our activities department vision is our programs will develop high character young men and women, instill pride in our residents, unite our community, and earn the respect from those outside of our district. This one was changed kind of halfway through it. We kind of felt like we had a generic one that you could kind of plop into anywhere. I think it was something about being the best in the state of Wisconsin, and we want to be the best in the state of Wisconsin, but it also felt like it wasn't personal. So this felt a little more that way. Communication of department philosophy. Already spoke to the importance of this. Want to make sure that we're doing that not only once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year. We want to be doing that every day, and we want to be delivering that through our coaches, through our advisors. We want to be delivering it through stuff that the students see in our schools. I really think eventually we want to get to the point where we're delivering it to our youth organizations, our feeder programs, and that's something that I see as a role of an activities director in reaching out to do those things. Retention and recruitment of coaches and advisors. This is an incredibly important one, an incredibly challenging one at times. As you guys know, coaching and advising is not the easiest job in the world. It is not the most thankful job in the world. Some of you have been coaches in here, some of you have been advisors in here. I give you all a ton of credit. So I think on one hand, this focuses on when we do have that opportunity and an opening, how do we have that discussion with our building principals, with our administration? What kind of value do we put on hiring an educator who is also going to educate our students outside of the classroom? I think we need to have that conversation. We talk about it, but not maybe we haven't dove into it yet. And I think that is critical for moving our programs forward. Creating a communication tool that outlines the opportunities of people that may be interested in coming into the district, and clearly identifying their opportunities within the Waupaca School District to coach or be an advisor here. And then I want to touch on, you can ask me about asset mapping. Well, yeah, I'm going to get into it. Asset mapping is something that actually Mr. Kirchmeyer brought up there in the corner of the room. And we have so many people, we understand that we're not going to get all educators to be our coaches and advisors. That's just not how it goes. Right now we have 38% of our high school athletic coaches are educators within the whole school system. We have 15,000 people in this community, and usually we go to the same people all the time. So this is kind of a work with the big businesses, the hospitals, the Foundry, Falks Brothers, those types of things, to reach out and say, hey, your employees, we want to take this survey. Do they have experience in helping with some of these co-curricular programs or some of these athletic programs? Creating a database that we can reach out to say, hey, we need help. Are you willing to help? Because we do a lot of times, and there are good people around us that we don't know to ask. So this will help with that. Creating a Hall of Fame for coaches and advisors that have put in tons of time for this community, for the students around here. I think that's incredibly important to show that we value the hours and the time and the effort that they have put in. Coaching and advisor development, we won't always get seasoned coaches and advisors. Often we get young coaches or advisors that just came out of school but are ambitious, have the time and energy to commit to that time or that responsibility. How do we develop them? That's going to be a huge thing to focus on for us, and we've started doing so. We'll continue to build upon that. So see some of those. Student motivation and leadership development. This came up constantly throughout ours. People feel like there's a perception that students are less motivated than they once were. You know, there's a lot of things competing for our attention, all of ours, adults, students, everything. And I think that if we want them to be engaged in extracurricular activities, which we do, we have to make intentional acts that we maybe didn't 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 years ago. And some of these action plans speak to that. Leadership development classes within the high school and middle school curriculum, something I've put up there. That's a conversation starter, obviously. District strength, wellness, and injury prevention coach. Host a professional speaker per year on the importance of participation in extracurricular activities and how to handle that. We're actually having somebody at the end of this month. Proactive Coaching is coming in and speaking to middle school students, high school students, parents, coaches, and trying to kind of continue that. That will be actually paid for through the Booster Club and the Community Foundation, so that is a good start. Facilities actually came up as one of our great strengths. People felt that Waupaca was very fortunate to have the facilities that we do. There was a couple things that came up as maybe a weakness or something that is an opportunity to improve. The activities director I put on there will work with the buildings ground supervisor in creating a maintenance plan for our natural turf areas. I know that August can be an extremely busy time for that department. I know this year we had construction going on at the chain school. We obviously are getting all of our field areas prepped during that time, and you can only be so many places at once. So that's something that I will work with Mr. Flatoff on and making sure we can do everything we can to be caught up in those areas at that time. Also have investing in updating the weight room. One of the things that we've heard as we have hired new coaches, specifically female coaches, that they go up into the weight room, we do the facility tour, and a comment that we hear is, wow, this feels like a male-used weight room. And it actually surprised me when we heard that a few times. I know that there's been talks on getting some more diverse equipment in there for people involved in more cardio type things, things like that. So again, big conversation piece. A lot of things go into that, but I did want to make sure it was in the plan. Community support and engagement. A lot of these are things that really done through our department. It's just we have to make the intentional effort to do it. You guys can kind of go through those. The one thing I'll touch on is community give back days. I do think that our community support is awesome here, and I think that it's important for our student athletes to learn the importance of giving back to their community. That is one initiative that I plan to start after this summer. So go ahead, Dr. Ian. Thank you. Student participation and promotion of activities. You'll also see in your packets how we kind of rate with participation among activities and athletics when we're talking about our conference, which is what I compared it to. Likewise, schools, similar areas, similar economic situations. We are, I think there's a perception when we went through the meetings that we have much fewer than we should have, and I'm not sure that's exactly the case. We are a little lower when it came to athletics. We were towards the bottom. When it came to activities, we were towards the bottom, but there was only 4 or 5 schools that actually responded to us there. But 70% participation rate when you take all activities into account, so 30% of kids aren't participating in anything, and I believe it was around 40, low 40s for athletics. So, but you'll see some action plans to address that, and I'm kind of moving along here because I feel I'm behind. All right, thanks. Student participation and promotion of activities. this is just continued action plans. One thing you'll see up there is something you've heard me talk about before in a different capacity. When we are talking about participation, I do believe that the challenge of affordability for the city programs will eventually affect participation numbers in the high school. And I'm not saying that what I proposed before is the right thing to do, or is the end all be all or silver bullet. I guess it would be a recommendation that we engage in the conversation, and maybe there's a better solution. There very well may be, but wanted to put that in there because it is a big topic in our community. Begin exploration of providing transportation assistance. This is also a huge one. When I have spoke with middle school students, we ask, why aren't you in something? If they aren't in something, transportation is one of the biggest ones, so beginning that conversation. Fundraising and administrative considerations. We understand that with plans like this, there are usually dollars tied to it, and when we're trying new initiatives, there are costs to some of those. I do understand that it is an activities department's responsibility to also fundraise. I would like to increase fundraising revenue by $20,000 annually in the near future. And then also another thing on there, review and restructure the athletic secretary position to accurately reflect the additional duties that position has received. When the athletic director position was changed to activities director for middle school and high school, so was the athletic secretary, not formally, but in duties. And just to review that and make sure that we have that where it needs to be is something that I feel is necessary. So we've talked about a lot of things. We'll continue to talk about a lot of things over the next 3 years or so. We won't get nearly the benefit out of those things if our culture isn't where we need it to be. And this is the thing that we want to stress right away to our students here at the high school and our coaches and at the middle school. Vision, values, and standards. This is something that you'll see a lot, hopefully, around our schools. Our core values there in the middle is interchangeable. I think we may have those for a year or 2 years, and then we'll review every year to say, hey, what 6 core values mean the most to us right now? So for example, humility may be a core value that's very important in everyone's life and something we want to teach our students. It may not be in our top 6 now, maybe it is going to be in 5 years. So we'll review those and keep pushing them on our students. And then the only other thing, Dr. Nian, did you get that chart I sent you? Yeah. You can just kind of throw that up. You don't need to look. We don't need to look in detail, but just to kind of game out how this may look over time. We just kind of put a timeline together. I think it was in like a Google Sheets form. I shared with you in an email. I put in spring 2019, summer 2019, ranging out to, I believe, summer of 2021, just to say these are the ones that are priority right now. These are the ones that we think have the most impact. The other ones can maybe be put off for a little bit. So that's in your packet as well. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Facilities question.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about facilities, it's kind of focused on athletic facilities. Are you also responsible for like the PAC facility and auditoriums and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think with our new PAC director or coordinator, I certainly communicate with Mr. Connor a lot. And it's something that when we put together, as you probably saw in the packet, the capital expenditures suggestions. I've talked to Mr. Connor about communicating what is needed in there. We haven't got there yet. Mr. Connor's working through his first year. I'm working through his first year. Yes, I do anticipate being involved in those conversations.
Aaron, just a comment, or maybe a question as well. In the discussions that you had with the different entities in the community and within the school district, was there ever any talk about young people who move from one building, let's say 8th graders coming into the 9th grade to the high school, all those students have to sign up for classes. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's something that we just take for granted. Was there anything about, at the same time students sign up for classes, that they also sign up for an activity in sort of as a mandatory? In other words, here's a sheet of paper, before you leave, give us the top 3 that you'd like to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're not sure what the chess club is, so that then somebody can follow up with them later, so that every student is contacted. This is what we want. Before you leave this table or this room,
Yep.
fill out this form.
Yeah, so that's a good question. We had an action plan in there that spoke to developing a tool for our academic advisors and the people that help schedule. The thought of academic advisor and then coupling that with like an activity advisor is something that we have discussed. Now, obviously, the activity department is a little smaller than the academic side of things. And just how to efficiently do that is the question, which is why we kind of thought that creating that tool to work with the academic advisors would be something that would be worth trying.
There are schools, but this isn't inventing the wheel. There are schools out there that do just that. You know, the transition from middle school to high school, when you come in, you're obligated, if that's the right word, to sign up for some activity. Now, whether you follow through with it as a student, I don't know, but before you are able to sign up everything else, you need to put down some choices. And that just becomes part of, as you are trying to incorporate here, part of the culture.
Yeah.
So then over time, 8th graders know, okay, I'm going to take English and biology and math, but I also have to sign up for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And they start looking at what are my choices.
Yeah, I really like the sounds of that. I think we are not about reinventing the wheel all the time. So if you guys know of situations that have been used successfully, I am all ears.
I think we certainly could consider something about what areas of interest do you have. I would be very careful about saying you have to sign up for something, because then you're getting into whether or not the parents are, you know.
Right. I didn't mean it like it comes out. But, you know, just as you say, what are your interests? Give us some ideas here, and we'll take it from there.
Good.
Because so many times, as you well know, and we all know, as educators, kids will say, gosh, I don't know anything about chess club, I'll put my name down there. And then they find out they really like it because somebody follows up on it. But we won't know that until at least they get something.
Well, and if we find solutions to transportation issues, there may be kids who think to themselves, oh, my parents won't take me to these things. But if we know that they're interested and we follow up with them, maybe we can provide some solutions too.
Right.
Find ways to get them involved.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I advised three different activities before I retired. And in the fall, we always had an activity fair out here, and I would get a listing of a number of students. And so then with my activities, I would contact those. So we did some of that stuff.
Right.
It wasn't formal, but most of us were out here that day with other students. So I got a list of maybe 25 to 30 students that I approached, and that's what kept my clubs active.
Right. Well, I agree, Dale, and I think that a lot of people have done that in terms of their area, whether it's an athletic area or theater or whatever. I think all we want to do is make it a little bit more formal and try to catch that 30% that aren't doing anything, and maybe nobody's asked them.
Right, and I just want to make sure that people who know here in the audience that we have made those types of attempts to really keep our organizations going.
Right.
Well, if you could take that into consideration as you move forward, that absolutely appreciated. Just how it might fit with the other things that you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask on the strength and wellness coach, are you looking at that as a person that would float amongst the various sports programs to provide that sort of expertise to coaches on how to implement strength training and so forth within their programs, or would that person be working with students who might not want to participate in a sport, might want to weightlift at their school and have a program designed for them?
I think both. Yeah, absolutely. I think if we had a district strength, wellness and conditioning and injury prevention coach, however many things you want to tag onto the title, it would be both. Yes. You know, one thing right now is we have an opportunity, I think that's outlined in your packet, possibly in the near future to spark up discussions on that with athletic trainer looking at that contract that's up. It's a 3-year contract typically, and that's up in the summer, and we'll be looking at that here in the next month. There's some opportunities through that. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just have one question. Has the district ever considered hiring a professional grant writer? I know they exist. So, just a thought.
Marine Marcon. It's been you the last time.
It's hard for people with their individual programs to get the money and to write those grants. And I know my wife has written several, and maybe they're 500 here, 5,000 here, whatever, but it's still, they're out there. A lot of money to fund this. But
Well, you raise a question that we could certainly discuss. Several boards have people, several districts have people who do just that. Maybe that's not their only title, but they do write grants of all nature, or at least help those who have the expertise to write them. Because as Jen and I just finished one that was 25 pages long, and many people will just shy away as soon as they see they have to write a narrative of 10 pages. They're like, oh man, there's no way I can do that. But somebody who has some expertise can say, that's not a big deal. Okay, you have the information, I'll get it down on paper. I think you're absolutely right. We need to look at that more than we have.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I just have one question, Aaron, as long as you're kind of have the floor. Most of our consent agenda has to do with hiring for the spring and so on. Are we pretty well set? I know there's one situation where there is, but pretty well set otherwise for all of our hires?
Yeah, pretty well set other than our girls soccer program, which we're working on right now. It's open.
But all the rest are in pretty good shape?
Yes.
Okay, good.
There's a motion and second. Any additional questions or conversation?
Do we have anyone being interviewed, or is the interview process underway for a replacement social studies teacher to replace Robert Cruz?
We're working on that, yes.
Any other questions or discussion?
What is the date of his resignation?
It was last,
Second.
The second?
It says.
His letter said the 18th, but I believe the 2nd was actually his last day.
Oh. Okay.
Other questions? Comments? Discussion? There being none, roll call.
Pat Fair?
Aye.
Steve Hackett?
Aye.
Mark Goldberger?
Aye.
Sandy Robinson? Yes. Barry Mannion?
Yes.
Dimitri Martin?
Aye.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.